Hello, this is Angelia with today's wisdom. Today's wisdom comes from Daily Ohm, Power of Union, entering into partnership. And there's many different kinds of partnerships. There's either romantic partnership, there's partnerships for businesses, any type of friendship is really a partnership. So, there's different kinds of partnerships. The purpose of partnership is to create something greater than we can create alone. If you think about it, that's it. If you go into partnership, when I was, running a ministry and a charity, we went into partnership with other folks so we could grow it. And when you get married, you build a life together. Not because of any deficiency or incompleteness in us, and that should be the case. That's not always the case, unfortunately. I knew a woman, she couldn't be without a man. And she said that. She said, I can't take care of myself, can't be without a man. And so she was married 3 times, before she passed away. And I think that's sad that you feel like your worth is inherent in, someone else. That you don't feel like you can make it yourself, so your worth has to be in someone else. And I think that's sad. But because each of us is unique, and we are, like a little snowflake, with our own talents and abilities, and we all have our own talents and abilities. You might be good at something that somebody else is not good at. You might be able to do something somebody else might not be able to do. And in partnership, we increase the efforts and talents available for creating something meaningful together. So, when, like I said, in a business partnership, you're trying to grow the business and help each other grow your businesses. In a marriage, you're trying to build a life together, and have a family and, raise that family up and keep your line going. Oh my goodness. All partnerships, whether romantic, creative, or professionally based, can be powerful relationships for personal growth. And they can be. Now, that's not always the case, but most of the time, it is. In partnership, we harness the power of union. And there's, power in numbers, as the saying goes. So the more you can get on board, like I said, our charity was open for 9 years. We couldn't get enough people behind us. I live in a very traditional city, and they have their pet charities, and they don't trust new charities. In the time that we were running the charity, there were 2 charities that came up, and people were doing the wrong things and embezzling and stuff. And I said, see, this is why. Because people like this, acting like little, thieves and jerks, makes the rest of us look bad. And, that's a shame, but it's unfortunately true. It is important to choose our partnerships conscientiously because, like I said, we had a few problems on the charity with people who we brought in who were not doing the right thing and who were making threats about taking over and all kinds of crazy stuff. So we voted them off. They were gone. So sometimes you got to watch for the snakes in the grass. If they sound too good to be true, they're probably not. And if you hold on to a snake long enough, it's going to bite you, or bring you to even bigger snakes. So my advice is, if you find a snake in the grass, let it go, because it's not worth it. Sometimes, forged quickly during times of need, we may find ourselves rushing into unions with perhaps not the clearest intentions. And I know a guy who went on a weekend getaway, met a girl and married her, by the end of the weekend. And we were all like, what? What? That must have been a heck of a weekend. It's like, oh, it was. So, sometimes stuff like that happens. That can work out for the better or can not work out for the better. In this case, they got married and they've been divorced and remarried. They had kids and now they have grandkids. And so it worked all right for them, but it doesn't always. Partnerships created from those Oh my gosh, it's all faded right there. Those starting point, excuse me, might serve our immediate needs. And some people are very impulsive, and that's what they're looking for, getting their needs met right now. But the repercussions of a union so quickly fostered without much thought can be difficult to recover from. And it can. I've gotten involved with people and then realized they're a total narcissistic sociopath, pathological liar. I catch them in lies and they'd be like, nuh-uh, and it's like, dude, the proof is right there. I'm seeing, nuh-uh, okay, you live your fantasy. I'm going this way. Granted, there is something to learn from every relationship. And there is, whether it be a good lesson or a bad lesson. Everything you go through is an experience that you can learn from. But looking to another to fix or complete us can turn a partnership into a dependent bond. And it can. It's like one of my first coaching clients was so absorbed in her man, she was talking about killing herself if they broke up. And I was like, no, he can't be your life. He can't live up to that. It's not fair to put on another person that they are your life. They can be a part of your life, but they can't be your life. That's too much pressure to put on anybody. And it's going to cause them to shove you away because that's too much. If we can steer clear about what we want and what we need in a partnership, while staying grounded and remembering that we are our own source of happiness and fulfillment, we can create partnerships that support and enhance the best of who we are. So, that is just so true. It's not even funny. You should know what you want in your life. And another person should not be that. They can be a part of your life. They should not be what you want out of life. You should have goals of your own about what you want to do with your life. That other person is there to be your companion, your best friend, your support. Your life shouldn't be them. And what we need in a partnership. My husband and I, we had some problems, and we ended up going to couples counseling before I would even go back with him because of all the drama. But because I don't like it, I hate drama. So one of the things we learned is to note what we wanted out of the relationship, and we made a list and compared. And we had points in common, but there were points we didn't have in common. And so we had to talk about that and, do some negotiation, according to the therapist, on, what we wanted out of a relationship. And at one point he said to me, I don't blame you for breaking up with me. I was a total jerk to you, and I see that now. And so I don't blame you for breaking up with me at all. And I was glad he saw that. But sometimes people don't ever see that about themselves. But, we need different things in a partnership. And if someone's making you feel bad in the partnership, it's well within your right to say, hey, when you're doing this, it makes me feel like this, and make it about you. Because the quickest way to push someone, you. No, I feel like this when you do this, make it about you, because it should always be about you. I know a woman she said her husband was so controlling, and held her like this. He wouldn't let her talk to whoever she wanted to talk to, or, go places without him. He had to be there anytime she spoke to anyone or did anything. So he was holding her like this. So, what's the quickest way to get someone to do something you don't want them to do? Tell them not to do it. We learned that from the Garden of Eden. You can eat all this fruit except that one. Devil's like, oh, I can use that. So that's the quickest way to get someone to do something you don't want them to do, is tell them not to do it. So, this woman felt like she had to lie, all the time to do just the things that she wanted to do. So that's not a good situation to be in. First off, he shouldn't be that controlling to where she feels like she has to do that. You know, you can't hold someone like this. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the coaching exercise. If you hold the penny like this and try to hold it for a long time, and eventually you have to let go. But if you hold it on this hand like this, open, you can hold it forever. And then there's a song that says, hold on loosely, but don't let go, because if you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control. That's actually true. So, know what you need in a partnership. And if someone's making you feel bad in the partnership, you have a right to say that. Say, I feel like this when you say this or do this. This hurts my feelings. I don't like this in my life. I don't want to deal with this. And that way you can communicate. And if there's ever any fear of the other partner, it's time to take a step away from that relationship, because you should not fear your partner. You shouldn't. Love shouldn't hurt, and you should not fear your partner. So, if you're feeling that, it's time to take a step away. While staying grounded, you should be grounded in yourself, your belief system, your life. Like I said, the person can be a part of your life, but they can't be your life. And if they are your life, you're living in a fantasy. You're fooling yourself, because if they are gone, then what's your life? And we know there are people like that, who they've made another person their life, then that person's gone or they pass away, they have no life. They don't know what to do with their life because that person was their life. And that's not a healthy thing. You're your own source of happiness. You're your own source of happiness. No one else can make you happy. They can do little things that make you happy, but they can't make you happy. You have to do that for yourself by knowing what you want and going for what you want and getting what you want. That's how you make yourself happy. And being fulfilled. Again, no other person can fulfill you. They can do things that make you feel that way. But ultimately, you have to fulfill yourself. You have to fill yourself with the things that are going to make you happy. They're going to make you get up in the morning, like da 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 da, stuff. And that's my husband jokes when he hears me humming and stuff. He goes, "Oh Lord, she's happy," like that. Because he jokes that when I'm happy, then I want to do more things, and he doesn't like to do more things. He's a homebody. He likes to lay around. So he's like, "Oh Lord, she's happy." So we joke with each other a lot. And your partnership should support and enhance the best of who you are. It should. That was a problem in our previous marriages, is he was non-supportive. He didn't want me to do anything, he didn't want me to write, do art, or anything like that. Well, in this relationship, he's learned that it's important to me for him to be supportive and not dismissive, So he's been very supportive in this relationship. And since then, I've got to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, I've written books that are selling all over the world. I had a book sale in Japan. I'm doing art. I had a gallery sale for the first time, a couple weeks ago. And before that, he was like, "Man, I don't know if your art's that good." I was like, "Well, art is subjective, and this is impressionistic, and, people liked some of it. I've sold lots of art out at booths in the community, but I'd never had a gallery sale before. So see, I'm doing these things that I always wanted to do. I'm like, one of my lists, when we made out the list, is what do you want out of your life? My list was like, I want to be a New York Times bestseller. I want to sell art from galleries. I want to have like people record my songs, and I've done acting. I've been in a couple movies, and I've been in some TV shows and then plays. So I don't want to become like a big star, because I can't remember lines. Ever since I had my stroke, I can't remember lines, because in my speech, I was in a play and they were like, "You can do it, you can do it, you can do it." But a lot of the times I was paraphrasing. I was coming up with words that said what I needed to say, but they weren't the exact words on the script. And my director was like, "I get it, I understand, just as long as you get it close so that it makes sense with the other stuff, we gotcha." So, that was nice. But, I like sewing, so I want to make some, clothes. I've made some clothes for myself. I've made stuff and people really like it. I get compliments. I made a poncho and people are like, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. I like the ivy around that and everything. And, that's nice. And people like a little hat I made with flowers on it and stuff. So I like to sew. So one day I'd like to be able, I probably won't live that long, but, to make my own designs and have them, sell. That would be great to me. And then, crafts. I do little crafts, and I've sold a lot of crafts out of booths and stuff. But, to maybe have like something I made, sell at a gallery, or, maybe somebody pick up a line and say, oh, I want to make a line of products from that, or, something like that, and, my crochet and stuff. So I wrote down all these little dreams that, I had from the time I was a little kid. Anybody knows me from a little kid, I had like the fashion plates. I don't know if you had the fashion plates when you were kids. And I would like design stuff, clothes and stuff all the time. So that's something, from when I was a little kid that I wanted to do. But I had pushed all that aside, to have the marriage and the job and the kids. And, so I wasn't doing any of that stuff. And so I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like, I was a slave to the world. I had to do the cooking and cleaning for my husband. I had to go to the job to earn money because he didn't make enough money to support us all. I had to take care of the kids because, who else was going to do it? So, I wasn't feeling very fulfilled. But when I made this list and started, like after work, I'd come home and I gave myself an hour to do something that I wanted to do. And then while they were outside playing in the backyard, and then I would, we do homework, and that was a whole nother issue. But anyway, your partnership should support and enhance who you are. And if the person you're in a partnership with is not supporting you, you need to tell them. You need to say, I feel devalued when you don't support me. Like I'm not good enough to have dreams and to go for them. I feel like that you don't respect me and you don't support me in anything I want to do. And that might open up the whole deal. That might open up a whole nother phase of your relationship that you all can grow and become closer in. If we have the courage to recognize our reflections in each other, and we all have more in common than we have different. We're all human beings. We all are looking for a higher power. We all want to learn. Most people, I'm not going to say we all, because there are people I know who like to be ignorant. They choose it. But I don't get that. We all want to be loved and love. And most of us want to be good, decent people. Now, there are people who choose not to be that way. But usually that's because of stuff they have to deal with in their own life. Most criminals will tell you, I was part of Catholic Charities system for a while with the charity, and there was a lot of people I knew several who was doing prison ministry, and she said all prisoners have a trauma story. You can go in there and talk to them. Beaten by the dad, left by the parents, raised in foster care, treated like shit, thrown out in the street when they were 15, 16. So he said all criminals have a story. Almost all of them have a trauma story. So, that is something that can cause problems in your life. We can grow through our partnerships, and we can. I got some good partners out in the West End there for a while. The one that, Spirit of Hope, Bishop Polk, Bishop Sharon Polk. She was the best woman to me ever. She was like a big sister that I never had. And she supported me in whatever I did. And if I was off base, she would tell me about it. She'd say, well, what you should do is this. Or, when you said that, you probably should have said it maybe like this. She would let me know. And I respected that about her because she did it nicely. There wasn't a mean bone in her body. And she provided me with lots of opportunities to speak at events throughout the city. She hooked me up with other agencies to go and have events there. And we did TV and radio together for, years. And like I said, I joked one time that she was my partner in wholesome crime, because we were trying to make the world a better place. We weren't doing anything bad, but, we were thick as thieves, trying to do some good. So, that's how it should be. You should have people who support you and are there for you, and you can be there for them. And there's, reciprocity. There's give and take. Because if someone's doing all the taking and you're doing all the giving, that doesn't really work. One of you going to resent the other for not getting their needs met. A partnership that offers both acceptance of who we are and an opportunity for personal transformation, and your partner should accept you for who you are. If they don't like who you are, then they shouldn't be in a relationship with you. They can walk away. Because that's what you're supposed to have, is an attraction. I like you. I like who you are. My husband, he's cute. He's funny. At this point in time, he gets befuddled pretty quick sometimes because he had a stroke and he's got some brain damage. But, whereas before he might get angry, now he just laughs it off. He's like, oh, well, my brain. So, I like who he is now. That wasn't always the case, but like I said, we both had to learn some lessons and grow up. So, I do like him, and that's how it should be. Excuse me. Your partner should like who you are, and they should support your growth as a person. And that's something, he was never willing to do previously. I'm not going to no therapist, no head shrinker, screw them. They don't know what they're talking about. But then once he got in there, because he realized that's the only way he was going to get me back, I was standing firm this time, he realized wasn't anything to be afraid of. They don't tell you what you should do. They ask you questions and give you suggestions. And it's up to you to figure your stuff out and take out your garbage. That's up to you. So your partner should accept who you are. And if they can't accept who you are, again, that's a problem in the relationship, and it might be time to take a step back and figure out where you go from there. And they should support your personal growth. That's another thing that I worked at a psychology group, a counseling center, and then had my own coaching office. And that is a common theme where controlling men don't want their wives to grow as a person, because that triggers their insecurity that she might leave them. And that's a problem, because the quickest way to get someone to leave you is to push them away and not accept that they want to be who they want to be. So your partner should be accepting your personal growth and even helping you. Like I said, my husband takes me, to art shows now. He's not a fan of art shows. He doesn't really want to go, but he goes to galleries with me. They had a little dance party. He went in there with me. So he's doing this to support my growth, to be supportive of me. And I go to his, little outings with his company. I don't care anything about big rigs, the big, I forget it, with trucker show or whatever, and the, show about the tractors and stuff. I don't care about that, but I go because I know he does, and it's something we can do together as a couple. So be supportive of each other. Excuse me. Accept each other's personal growth, because that is going to enrich your relationship, and you can grow as a couple together, and that's only going to strengthen your bond, and you're going to be a lot happier. A partnership that offers both acceptance of who we are and opportunities for personal transformation can be fertile ground for growing a healthy, lasting union, like I just said. If you are good to your partner, if you communicate, and women, we're especially bad at that. We feel like they should know, but they don't know. And like I say, men have 3 times less connections in the center of their brain. So sometimes men are pretty clueless about what we want. They think everything's fine, and you say, and they're like, oh. They had no idea. So women, you need especially to communicate your feelings better. Don't assume he knows, because he doesn't know. He's running on auto. He's wanting to eat and go to the bathroom and sleep, and maybe something else, but we won't talk about that. But, you're going to have to tell him. So, women, you need to communicate better. And men, you need to be more supportive. And I don't care if she wants to go to the opera and you hate opera and you feel like you're going to claw your face off. Go do it. When we find this kind of partnership, we are more likely to want to keep it. Again, if you're happy in your relationship, you're more likely to want to keep it. And that's what, I told my husband, because he was like, I'm not sure exactly what you want, from me. That's always been a problem with me. I'm insecure about that. And I said, be nice to me and love me. That's all I ask. That's it. That's all I want. And he's like, I can do that. I'm like, all right, we're good then. Because I'm not a dependent person. I'm independent. I like doing my own thing. I got my own thing. And, I expect him to have his own thing and not be clinging to me, but sometimes, if it's an emotional thing, he can cling to me. He knows he can. I can be there for him. But other than that, I kind of like, I do my thing, he does his thing, and then we meet in the middle. Because I'm not a dependent type of person. I'm an independent type of person. And somebody else might be dependent, and they might be too clingy or whatever. So that's something you all need to talk about and address. Invest in it, meaning you want to invest in the relationship. I was in a relationship with a man where he insisted, even though we were living together, he keeps his finances, mine separate. We have separate lives, separate everything. He didn't want anything together, even like planning, vacation, Well, here's my vacation. Here's what I want to do. Well, on your vacation, we'll do what you want to do. Everything was separate. And so I didn't feel like he was invested in the relationship. So at a certain point where, he was dragging his feet, and I'm like, well, about a year ago, you were talking about getting engaged and all this stuff. And I'm noticing now that's not happening anymore. And you are keeping me at arm's length, and I feel like there's not any closeness in the relationship. He slept in his own bed in his own room, and I slept in my bed in my room. So I felt like this was not a relationship. And so I straight up asked him, I said, if we're not going anywhere, I don't want to be here because I don't feel all that cared about anyway. And he's like, well, yeah, I've decided I really don't want to marry you. I don't like you enough. And I'm like, so why are we even here? He's like, oh, well, right now you're my meal ticket. You're helping me pay for the house. And I'm like, well, guess what? That's over. I'm done. Packed my stuff and left. So, his mom had to sell the house because it was his mother's house. And she was mad about it, and it's like, no, well, should told your son not to be, a gigolo, but so I wasn't going to invest anymore in that relationship because it wasn't going anywhere. And nurture it. Again, you've got to nurture your relationship, do the little things for each other. Guys, bring your woman some flowers on a special occasion. At my gallery opening, my husband gave me a little bouquet of flowers. He didn't have time to buy one because he was running late that day, so he picked it up out of the yard. And that was fine, though, because he made the effort. And sometimes he buys me, flowers for holidays or, special occasions. And that shows me that he cares, And if something good happens for him, I buy him a little something or do something for him. If it's a day that means something to him, I'll take him out to dinner, or he'll take me out to dinner. Nurture the relationship, because if you show the partner that your relationship is important to you, then they're going to be happy. They're not going to be unhappy and, feel like they have to do things. They're going to be happy. So if you show your partner love and affection and support, then your relationship is going to be something that you care about. It's just not going to be I hear these guys, oh, the old ball and chain. Well, if you feel that way, chances are she feels unappreciated, so she's probably being snippy to you because you're not nurturing the relationship. You're not showing her that you care about her. You know, you get a wife you feel about that, like bring her home a big bouquet of flowers and say, just because I felt like it, they looked like you and I thought I'd just get them for you. And watch her whole attitude change. I guarantee you, it will. Life is a collaborative effort. Much of what we can do can be enhanced through partnerships. Together we are stronger because our personal power is multiplied by 2. So when you're seriously together as a couple, and you make decisions together and you build a life together, like I say, this time around, you know, me and my husband, we're planning for a future, we're saving money, we're building, you know, little by little, so we have an investment together this time around, and we're happy, and we're having a good life. So, you know, sometimes there's a learning curve. But what you should be doing is building together. Excuse me. And I read a book by a woman who's did a thing about building your children up without tearing them down, which is something my own dad said about. He was, you know, a sergeant in the Army, and the tactic was to tear them down and then build them up. And he says he felt like he might have tore us down but forgot to build us back up. And in a relationship, that shouldn't be a thing at all. There should be no tearing down. So you should think about everything you say or do. And it's like, is this destructive to my relationship? Is this destructive to my relationship with her or him? And if it is, don't do it or say it. You need to find constructive ways to be in a relationship. Will this help our relationship? Yeah, it will. I'm going to say it. Will this help our relationship? Yeah, it will. I'm going to do it. So think about that. You know, you guys are in this together, and you should be loving on each other. It should be the way it is. So, you know, if you have a happy family, and like I said, in my grandparents' day, you know, it was more like that. You know, I never knew one of my grandfathers, but from what I hear from his wife, they were just the best buddies ever. They loved each other, and I mean, she mourned that man all her life. She never even looked at another man. So, you know, don't you want that? Don't you want your partner to be so in love with you and so happy with you, you don't even want him to look at anybody else? Through partnership, we experience the joys of working, living, and loving together. Because we can find good partners you can work with, like I said, like Bishop Polk, it makes your work a joy. You don't even feel like it's work. You're just out there having fun. And if you're living with someone, they should be, you know, a partner. You shouldn't keep them at arm's length and play stupid little mind games with them. You know, you should embrace them. And of course, with your spouse, you should embrace them fully for who they are, not try to change them or make them who you want them to be, because that's not going to work. So, think about it. Please like and share this wisdom so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. Thanks for watching. That's all for now. Until next time.